we even had some students to tell us at the time, just being really candid, had a fight on campus. We going through the process, investigating, getting statements. And the thing was, why are y'all fighting at school? And the response we got is, well, we fight here because we know that it's less likely that somebody gonna be able to pull out a gun. So we can just fight without worrying about somebody getting killed. In a roundabout way, that's kind of a compliment, but at the same time, it highlights what these kids are dealing with on a regular basis. Like I can't resolve this conflict outside of school because I might get killed. So at least if I come to school, I know I have my fair shot.
All right, everyone, get ready. Today, we're diving deep into the heart of educational excellence and community pride. We're talking about a school that doesn't just teach, it inspires. Our guest today is a driving force behind the Hornet Nation. He's a leader who's redefining what it means to lead a magnet powerhouse, balancing rigorous academics with a championship spirit right here in the great city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He is a man at the helm of the legendary Scotlandville Magnet High School, a dedicated educator, a community pillar, and the ultimate advocate for student success. Please welcome the one, the only, Principal Paul Jackson. Principal Jackson, welcome to the BRSTEM podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
All right, Mr. Jackson, could you go ahead and just tell a little bit more about yourself, and we'll get into how you decided to choose education as a career path.
Okay. So my name is Paul Jackson. I currently serve as the principal here at the Scotlandville Magnet High School. I am also a 1989 graduate of Scotlandville Magnet High School. And I would have to say that the career of education chose me. I don't know if I necessarily chose it. I originally went and received my undergrad, a Bachelor of Science in accounting, and spent the first few years after college working as an accountant, the last couple being an accountant for the state.
Okay.
Going through a transition, just trying to see what else was out there. Had a classmate talk me into going into a informational about teaching.
Okay.
You know, at the time, my response was, I'm not interested in teaching. They get the summers off, but that's about it. So went to the informational, actually found it to be something that I was interested in. Felt like it was definitely a call. And as they say, the rest is history.
So you went into teaching first? Like, what were you teaching?
Right. So I went into teaching first in 2003.
Okay.
And I taught middle school math initially, also taught high school math. During that time, I taught high school, not taught, but I coached middle school athletics.
Okay.
As well as after my time ended in middle school, Crestworth Middle, moved on to this little small school that was on Estruma's campus, but was a separate school, EBR Lab.
Okay.
Had the opportunity to move into leadership there, serving as dean of students and athletic director. They did not have an athletic program, so I had to literally start it from scratch.
What grades was it?
It was a regular high school, 9 through 12.
Okay.
It grew to 12th grade. It was an incubator style, college prep type school. And the last semester that it was open, I had the opportunity to serve as principal. And that year, we actually set a record in the state for growth.
Okay.
So that was really exciting. Moved on from there. Spent a few years at Capitol Middle, 3 years exactly. Had the opportunity to do some great things there, working with Dr. Viola Jackson. We first implemented our parent support network. That was really, really good. Trying to help the parents of the students. You know, a lot of times the challenges that the students have are representative of what the family's dealing with as a whole. So trying to address some things there. From there, spent a year outside of EBR at Friendship Capital High, where I served as principal.
What year was that?
That was 2015-16 school year.
Okay.
So that year, Capital High was under mandate. Basically, it had to grow or else because it had been struggling. Again, we were able to set a record that year. At the end of that year, we know coming up into the next school year, we had the Great Flood.
Okay.
And it was at that time that I transitioned here to Scotlandville, initially as an assistant principal, serving my first 5 years, and then the second 5, this being the 5th, I've served as principal.
Okay. So before we'll spend some time talking about Scotlandville, but I just want to kind of dig a little bit deeper. So one of the things that we're focusing on with the podcast is really trying to get to individuals, whether there's educators, after school providers, organizations and individuals that are working with young people and trying to push them. And so I just kind of really want to understand, and so I'm familiar with kind of that timetable. I didn't necessarily know you then, but I'm familiar with that timetable and some of the things that were going on in some of these different schools.
Right.
And so I think sometimes what ends up happening is, if we're just going to be honest about it, some kids in certain situations in certain parts of our community, really get thrown away.
Yes.
All right. And so, some of those schools that you name, there have been some challenges. And so I guess what I want to try to understand is, working in those communities or in those school communities, what kind of motivated you every day to get up and kind of keep going?
Oh, wow. Well, that was, those communities, those demographics are the ones that I wanted to serve.
Okay.
Because, I'm from the Scotlandville community. So, for me, really, really passionate about it, as well as North Baton Rouge as a whole, and had the opportunity to go to some different schools. But as a wise man once told me, well, people don't need a doctor. So I felt like the community that needed an educator with a passion for the kids the most was the ones who seemed to be served the least. So that was the driving force. So some of the more well-known, more prominent schools didn't appeal to me as much. I wanted to go where the need was the greatest. I remember educators have been a prominent part throughout my life, and I really, really just wanted to have that same impact on young people of today.
Okay. And so, being a former school leader myself, one of the challenges that I experience oftentimes is, so you talked about that passion. And so a lot of times when you're kind of going through the interview process, you'll find individuals that kind of say the same thing you said. But then when we get like in the meat of the battle, not everybody can last, not everybody can take it. And so when you're trying to identify team members to come, and I'm still kind of talking back then, like, what was it that like did you try to convey to prospective teachers or team members or whatnot, to kind of develop that same type of concern and passion? Because I'll share this. One of the things that, I've oftentimes found crushing was, once we see what we're doing, a lot of times, adults would lead the kids. And I'm gonna go back to what you said earlier, is oftentimes what we're dealing with in the school community, kids are just bringing that from what they're dealing with outside of the school community.
Absolutely.
And so if I take that same little analogy or parallel, the reason I say it's crushing, because again, we had kids who had family members that were leaving them. And now they have this adult that they've gotten attached to, and now they leave. And so, I guess I want to understand if that's something you experienced or dealt with. And then if so, like, how did you help to craft a culture where folks understood like, we got to stick with these kids regardless how tough it gets?
So Eric, that was amazing, because I dealt with that situation yesterday. So I'm gonna start from there and then go back.
Go with it.
We had a student, 11th grade, does C-Tech, works a couple of jobs, had, a not positive discourse with one of our deans. And when we dug didn't have to dig too deep. Found out it was because parent that she was staying with had put her out.
Okay.
And literally did not have any other family locally and didn't know, what she was going to do. So we went through the process. As a school system, we are mandatory reporters. So we did the things that we had to do. But it was that in identifying students like that and being able to provide the supports that they need that has always driven me. I realized that I was fortunate to come from two-parent household, supportive, all of that. Everybody doesn't get that.
Yeah.
And what I remember even with having that is that the school, the neighborhood, the community was still that village, because even in my case, parents didn't cover everything. They had some things that were missing, but you had that village behind you supporting it. So the goal from day one was always to be a part of that village and to be able to identify like-minded people who were interested in being a part of that village. And so for me, it was a process. As I moved into leadership, I heard some words, and I have to give credit to who gave them. Phyllis Crawford from Sherwood Middle.
Okay.
And she says, you hire great people, you give them everything that they need, and then you get out of their way. And I believe that has been the leadership style that works best for me. Worker bee by nature, not a micromanager.
Okay.
So I depend on, we as a team, everybody is doing their part, doing their job, and we can come together as the whole and make something special.
Now, and so if we could stay on this leadership piece for a minute, I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and they were sharing how, and they're in education, and they were sharing how, because I know sometimes folks, obviously I'm not like a traditional educator, but sometimes folks are comfortable being in a classroom. And like, that's what they aspire to do. That's where they'll stay. Don't call me, don't bother me about coming to work in the office. And so, but then there are other folks who, they want to try, they have a career trajectory that they want to follow. They got aspirations of being superintendent one day or things like that. But in this conversation with this individual, they were struggling with taking on leadership roles. And the reason is, and they to their credit, they've always been an excellent educator. But the reason is that I think it's twofold. One, because they've been an educator, and I think like the level of frustration and not doing the things the way that they've done is one. And then kind of related to that, I guess what they specifically were saying was that they struggle with the idea of kind of what we've been talking about, like people not coming to work, people quitting on kids, people not lesson planning. And
Yeah.
I think, for them personally, it's a matter of, because kind of being that worker bee type person and wanting to get it done for the kids and having high marks and stuff for the students, how to move back and like you said, give them the tools that they need and then let them shine and let them do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so is that something that you struggle with, or whether it is or it isn't, like, is that something, where's a wisdom you can share with people?
Yeah, I knew where you were going. So when I was initially approached about going into leadership, because like you, education and leadership, I came into alternatively on both of them. I remember being adamant about not wanting to come out of the classroom. And I did not want to come out of the classroom. I was teaching math, I was coaching athletics, and my rationale was I knew that I was having a tangible, positive impact.
And that's that word out
on the students that I was interacting with. I knew that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And so I was like, and I even used the analogy, the house slave and the field slave. And I was like, I want to stay in the field because I know, I'm not sure what happened if I go in the house, but I want to stay in the field because I know what's going on here. So finally, between my wife and some other people that are significantly smarter than me, convinced me that you can have that same or similar impact on a greater number of students if you are able to move up. And so it was at that point, after hearing that message a few times, that I started looking at going into it. But I could relate to that educator completely, because that was me.
All right. And so in those early years, transitioning from government or, from the accounting profession into education, like what were some of your initial challenges that you faced during that transition period?
Honestly, the initial challenges came from my colleagues.
Okay.
Education is constantly evolving. But at that time in the early 2000s, when you had come into education alternatively, people kind of looked at you side-eyed. And it was a few of us because we had gone through the district program, Teach Baton Rouge. So it was a few of us that had come alternatively. And initially it took the work and them seeing the work and them seeing you continue to show up. And in one instance, seeing you have 56 kids in one classroom from August to October and never complaining about it, just doing the work. And so that won them over eventually. They was like, well, maybe you can make it in this profession. But that was the initial thing, just them feeling like you are not an educator by craft.
Okay.
And once that was overcome, always had the ability to connect with the students, but the adults tend to be the challenge.
Okay. Now you said you coached. What'd you coach?
So I coached football, basketball, and track at the middle school level. At the high school level, basketball and track.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you went here, right?
Yeah. I did go here.
What sports did y'all have?
I went here when we were a dedicated magnet. We had track, swimming.
Oh, see, I didn't know y'all had
tennis.
Track.
Yeah, my senior year, our girls team won state.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a pretty good track program. But outside of school, I'd always been involved in sports.
Okay.
Rec league, everything. Watched the game, student of it, but I also knew my limitations. So even once I did it at the high school level, my playing days consisted of middle school. So once I got to the high school level, I could give them the basics.
Yeah.
And then as it grew, it was like, okay, let's find somebody that does this for real.
I feel you.
Yeah. So I learned my limitations early.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too. Yeah. So I know a few years ago, because even some guys I played with in high school, who weren't like in the school setting, and I'm sure it's still going on now, but I started noticing that there were people that weren't like a part of the school that was being brought on as coaches or whatever.
Absolutely.
You know why that was, or?
So, twofold actually. So I think since the beginning, it had always been the opportunity for volunteer coaches that were not in the system, but had that particular expertise. I think it has become more prominent now because a lot of educators are not coaching as much, and a lot of coaches are not staying in traditional schools.
Gotcha.
So that is necessitated having more volunteer coaches.
Where'd you go to college?
The Southern University.
You would like to say that, Vito.
Yeah. The Southern University.
So then, tell me about that experience.
So Southern is probably where I grew up.
Okay.
Came in after graduating high school, and that first semester was an experience, and most of it was not in the classroom. I remember my mom saying, we paid this tuition fee to go have a party. So started off in the hole that I had to dig out of.
So you broke in the 90s. You just
90s. Yeah. Started fall of 89. By spring of 90, I was on probation.
Man.
And so it was like, you have to make a decision.
So can I share a story with you?
Please do.
Because my mama likes to watch this. So I was in Upward Bound. Okay. And that really just wasn't that, because some kids, they love being away from home. I wasn't that person. So the high school years in Upward Bound, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't very social. It was a struggle. And then once I graduated, they paid for us to go that summer.
Right.
I think we had like 3 courses, 9 credit hours. And so I was good then. At that point, I was good. But I was going to Southern for the fall. So we stayed on campus and had a good time, straight A's. I think that was the first time had straight A's in my life.
Okay.
So I got off on a great start. But my parents bought me a car, before I graduated from high school. And we couldn't have a car like at
On
Upper Bound.
campus.
So I didn't have my car for the summer. And when I come home on the weekends, I drive it or whatnot. But boy, when the fall kicked off and I had that car and I was back, working at Piggly Wiggly, my mama said, "Give me the keys."
Yeah.
And so I kind of hit that wake up call, because I had a scholarship, and then it was like, I got called to the dean office and, "You don't get this together, you're not gonna be on the scholarship."
Right.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to share that.
No. I completely can relate. And so, went into college, knew I wanted to go into accounting, knew that's what I was interested in from my time here. And, that starting with spring of 90, just had to dig out of that hole. Was able to do that, in the process of which, got married the first time, had a couple of kids, worked like 2-3 jobs.
So you was married while you was in school?
While I was in school.
Okay.
And working a couple of jobs and had a work study. So work ethic has never been a problem.
Gotcha.
And as I moved through, initially when I graduated, with my bachelor's in accounting, went to work, at a home health. Home health's are really big during that time.
Yeah.
Did billing, transitioned from there to the state, worked for Department of Social Services with Medicaid for a few years, which really kind of connected with education because we had to do promotional events.
Okay.
That had a lot of young kids, grade level people, which kind of started that interaction and seeing some of the struggles and challenges, even though then I still was like, education is not for me. But from there, I went to the Department of Health and Hospitals at Louisiana Rehab Services and was an accountant one, and was doing the job and it was going, but it was like just doing the job and just going. You're working for the state. At the time, started going through a divorce, had 2 small daughters, so it was like, okay, I need to make some change.
Yeah.
And in that process, like I said, ran into a high school classmate who also had graduated in accounting. It's like, hey, what you doing? They were like, I'm teaching. Like, teaching? And so they were like, yeah, go to this Teach Baton Rouge thing is amazing, so on and so forth. Talked me into it. And this was actually at a Southern basketball game. So I was like, okay, I'll go. And like I said, I went and here we are.
Now you mentioned how you always had this work ethic. Where did it come from?
Oh, my parents.
Okay.
Oh, definitely.
Tell me a little bit about them.
So my dad, you may remember Kaiser Aluminum.
Yeah.
Used to be a plant right before you crossed the old bridge. He worked there for like 35 years. My mom was a homemaker, but I'm the youngest of 11. So even being yes, sir, the youngest of 11. Yes, sir. And so even being a homemaker, it was still work.
Yeah.
And that's all I saw them do. Same with my siblings. Yeah, it was 3 things. It was work, it was education, and it was church.
Gotcha.
And everything else was, could be taken or left, but those 3 were it. And so that was always the focus.
What church I grew up in?
So I initially grew up in the Immaculate Conception. I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
Since transition to full gospel, but I grew up Catholic right there on Curtis Street because that's where I grew up.
You grew up on Curtis Street? Okay.
Yeah, grew up on Curtis Street.
What street is it? So my mom, when we were growing up, my mom worked for it was a law firm. I think it's a street over Judge Calloway.
Yeah.
His law practice.
Yeah.
And I think it's a tea shop, or it used to be a tea shop right now.
Yeah.
But that's where my
right
mom
down the
used to work.
corner.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then there's a lady that used to work, her name is B, who I think lived on Curtis Street. I'm sure B is not her last
I was
name.
about to say I'll have to hear a last name, but
I'll find out from my mom.
Yeah,
I think she lived on Curtis Street, but yeah, she used to work at the law office with them.
Yeah.
All right. So look, let's we can go ahead and transition to this edifice y'all have here on Scott. How y'all say the address? What's the address?
9870 Scotland Ave.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Y'all got it blazing on the court now.
Yeah.
All right. So talk about that transition to Scotlandville. And let me say this. And so, I moved away, came back, and like I said, with you 2 years older than me, but I remember that whole thing because I went to Sherman Middle Mac.
Okay.
And I ended up going to Columbus because I wanted to be a play sports.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people I went to Sherman Middle Magnet would end up at Scotlandville. So,
Right.
but I also remember those conversations about the community wanting that school back. So I want to kind of touch on that too. But just talk about this legacy that you've been a part of and that continues to build here at Scotlandville.
Yeah. So Scotlandville is probably the epitome of being able to overcome.
Okay.
One of the things, and I think I even mentioned this when I first became principal, is that regardless to what iteration of Scotlandville you're familiar with, the school has always been able to be successful.
Yeah.
So, from 1952 when it was over on Elm Grove Garden, and started off 7th, 8th grade, added a class until they had the first graduating class in 56, moved to 9870 Scotland Avenue and 60. The school has always done well and been prominent. We hit 82, and due to desegregation, which I just happened to see a article popped up on my news line saying that a judge ruled that Louisiana is still segregated educationally.
Yeah.
Today, just saw that. But the idea was to make Scotlandville a dedicated magnet to diversify the population. I think what the community took the hardest, because I was going into middle school around that time, what the community took the hardest was that not that the school became a magnet, but that they changed the colors, changed the mascot. I remember hearing the senior high alum saying it's like they tried to erase us. I think that was the part. Had it been Scotlandville Magnet High and you kept the colors and it was still the Hornets.
So say it again for people who don't understand, because I think sometimes if you think back to when charter schools started coming to Baton Rouge and people looking at the stuff that was happening in New Orleans, kind of like the same thing.
Yeah.
Why does that matter? Because I don't think people quite understand that.
So I think it's that history piece, and that's that pride in the community. So, and I know that probably a large segment of your audience knows, initially you had McKinley, and then you had Capital, and then you had Scotlandville. And those were the only 3 high schools for Black people.
Yeah.
I remember my oldest brother actually would catch the bus to go to McKinley.
Okay.
Prior to Scotlandville opening. So that's part of it. And then when you removed it, I would hear stories like, well, they threw away all our trophies and our records, not just athletic records, but academic records. Okay. And so that was a big thing. And then they came in, I graduated as an Eagle. Colors were blue and gray, was not a Hornet. And because of the love and passion and pride that those senior high alumni had for the school, to see all of that, in their words, to be just wiped away or tried to be forgotten about, was disheartening. And it ran deep for them. Even though several of them sent their children to the new version of Scotlandville, they still harbored some hard feelings.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of times, because I was participating in some of those conversations when Advanced Baton Rouge was formed and 100 Black Men, because I was actually a member of 100 Black Men at that time, when they initially took over Capitol.
Yeah.
And so I just remember a lot of times in those community meetings, people would reference the things that had happened in New Orleans as they were making that transition.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I just think it was difficult as a community because while academics clearly is important, and that's what we're all here for, I just think sometimes the community wasn't being heard when it came to things like this.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's part of the reason why we struggled a lot in making these transitions, because too many times people in leadership weren't listening to the community.
That was definitely a big part of it. And I have, because my family is from the Scotlandville area, a lot of those older alum, I know them because they grew up with my siblings. And so that's the thing that they talked about. Like, there was minimal conversation leading up to. And then they felt like that conversation was not as transparent as
Yeah.
it could have been or even should have been. So, which helped with those hard feelings. And as they transitioned back, regain the colors, regain the mascot, while still keeping the magnet component, they stormed right back in with that same sense of pride as though nothing had ever happened. And one of the more interesting things that happened to me was maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, a couple of people I went to school with here came in to tour. We're going to do some things, partner with the school. And I heard those same words,
Yeah.
but from the other side, they were like, well, they took our colors and they took our mascot and they just tried to erase us like we were never here, and I'm an Eagle. So I'm like, I understand, but actually it was kind of theirs first. But because at that time we were getting kids from all over the city, a lot of them didn't understand that history, didn't know that history existed. They just knew that they were coming to this new magnet program that specialized in engineering. And it was on the north side of town. They didn't know all of the backstory to how it became. So it's interesting for me because I get it from both sides.
But then have y'all done like some events? I don't know if it was during football season, something like where you brought back the Eagles for some events or something like that.
Yeah, so we have done several things. One of the things that I came into, even as assistant principal, that I wanted to do was try and unite the alumni.
Okay.
Because it is extremely fractured for those reasons. And so we developed a theme, One Scotlandville.
Okay.
Like regardless to color, regardless to mascot, we all graduated from Scotlandville. And whichever Scotlandville you graduated from, it did really well. And it should be a source of pride. And so we did do some Eagle Nights for football where they had the royal blue and gray jerseys. We've been very, very conscious to acknowledge and do a better job of including the Eagle alumni because there is about a 26, 27-year period where it was Eagles. And they have gone on to do some great things, did while they were here, while we were here, and then went forward to do some great things that should be acknowledged and celebrated in the Scotlandville community.
Okay, cool. And so I know some years back, because you just recognized her, Miss, you named one of the programs after her.
Beatrice Arvey.
Miss Arvey. So
Yes.
she had, because when I was leading the Baton Rouge Black Chamber, she had pulled me in and kind of doing some stuff there. But I guess I want to just help folks understand what are different programs that are in place here, and then what are the requirements for students to be in the programs.
So I'm going to
because I don't think everybody really know what's like out in the community. I don't think people understand like everything that's going on here. And y'all doing a lot,
a whole lot, and I feel it every day. But we are. So I'm going to start with engineering. Our engineering magnet program has two parts.
Okay.
So the engineering magnet is the part that has been around for 42 years.
Okay.
In preparing for this podcast, found out that we are the oldest specialized magnet program in the state of Louisiana.
Okay.
So it comes with prerequisites. Have to have minimum 3.0 GPA. Have to have minimum basic on LEAP tests.
Okay.
Then the Academy of Engineering, which the engineering magnet sits under the umbrella, but the Academy of Engineering is part of the Centers of Excellence that were opened at Scotlandville when it was renovated.
Okay.
Right around the time Mr. Howard Davis was coming back. So we have the Centers of Excellence are the Academy of Engineering, the Business Entrepreneurship and Magnet Program, and the Government Affairs and Law Magnet Program. And those have open enrollment to get in, but once a student gets in, they have to maintain a minimum 2.5.
And so I'm clear. So every student on this campus is in one of those three programs?
No.
Okay.
Because one of the things that happened as the school went through its various, it went from that dedicated magnet until from 92 till about 96, 97, neighborhood kids, they traditional component came back. So it was a magnet school, school within a school, a magnet school, and it had the traditional component.
Okay.
So one of the things that we've done with the traditional component, which was a big part of what I did when I initially got here, was to provide them some of the same experiences and opportunities that the magnet students got. So we have all those things that I just named on the magnet side. On the traditional side, we have 3 academies: health science, information technology, and finance. And within those 3 academies, students have a choice of 3 pathways. For example, if you're health science, you have the choice of CNA,
Okay.
pre-nursing, sports med, or EMT. If you are IT, you have the option of digital media or networking or programming.
Okay.
And then for finance, you have entrepreneurship, insurance, and business management.
Okay. So one quick segue, and I don't want to get off topic here. So does the Hornets TV fall under digital media?
It does.
Okay. So I just want to give them a shout out.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they are
yes.
like awesome, man. And
Yeah, they
I
are
saw
doing
that,
some
I
great
guess the
work.
district did like a district wide Black History program,
Correct.
and they videoed it at Glen
They did.
So yeah, so that I just want to give them a shout out because they're awesome, and
Yeah,
they've
they
come
are
into a
doing
couple
some
of
great
robotics
work.
activities.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And so that's a lot of programming.
Yeah.
And included in all of that is the fact that we are a NAF, which stands for National Academy Foundation. We are a NAF school. We are the only one in East Baton Rouge Parish School System, and we are only one of 3 in the state of Louisiana.
Okay.
And what it is simply is a work-based learning curriculum model where students go through a series of activities, which you have now had the opportunity to become very familiar with. And one of the things that we do to motivate them, or carrot that we dangle, is that at the end of their junior year, if they've met certain criteria, they have the opportunity to intern for paid internships in their field of choice, as close as we possibly can. And then their senior year, they do some type of capstone project.
Okay.
So
Now, with I want to talk about and I don't want to like categorize it incorrectly, but the digital media, the health, like you said, that's like general education.
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So those students, or I guess those specialties and trainings that they're getting, are teachers on campus doing that, or are they doing that at CTEC, or a mix of both?
It's a mix of both.
Okay.
So we have a great relationship with CTEC. I have to shout out Amber Boyd and her team because they have been absolutely phenomenal for Scotlandville. We do have some that we do here on campus, and we also have some outside of CTEC. We have a great partnership with BRCC.
Okay. All right.
And so with those entities working together, we are able to provide those experiences, learning in a different way. One of the things that we have a lot of conversation about is that education cannot look in 2026 like it did in 1986. You hear it, but it's a different thing to see it, where this can't always be in rows, everybody pointing, facing the teacher. And one of the best examples for that on our campus is our digital media program. Because if you have the opportunity to look in their classrooms, they do not look like traditional classrooms. You know, you have couches and lights streamed across, and screens everywhere, and kids in different groups working on different activities. But it's all a part of the learning process. And it is one of our most successful programs, and one of the programs that students are growing, increasingly becoming more interested in participating in. So it's been great for us.
And I'll just, again, because like graphics, the video, like everything is awesome. And because it was another podcast I was listening to where, and sometimes I struggle with this, but I think the wording was, it wasn't a podcast, it was an article, how I think the head of the House of Representatives in Louisiana and Master P was saying, and I didn't read the article, this was just the headline, that they were talking about from college perspective that the colleges need to focus on teaching kids what they want. And sometimes I don't know if I agree with that, but going back to what you said about the classroom for the digital media piece, I think the reality is that, and I don't know if they still do this, but I know a few years ago, a lot of these social media influencers that they had influencer houses.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like
Mm-hmm.
living in a house together. They had all the studios and the props and stuff like that.
Right.
And so we, like this is the world that young people are living in.
Yeah.
And so to be able to, one, let them hone their skills, because, obviously some of them know how to do this better than we do, but let them hone their skills, build their skills. But two, the reality is this is like how a lot of people are making money.
Yeah.
And so the
Definitely.
more that kids can see a pathway to dollars, I think the more that we can kind of keep them engaged, and keep them motivated about the learning process. So I want to applaud y'all for that.
We appreciate it.
And then also, so the reason I asked the question about C-Tech, and I know a couple individuals that are kind of leading things over there as well. Like Miss Sharon, my daughter, and her daughter like grew up together. They were best friends growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and I know she's working over there with the nursing program.
Right.
And so I guess what I'm trying to understand and wanting us as a community to understand, when we were in school or at least at Glen Oaks, so y'all got the industrial area back there where the engineering lab is.
Right.
And we had something similar to that at Glen Oaks, but it was a mechanic shop back there.
Mm-hmm.
They did wood shop. I know there was a mechanic shop and an auto shop and a wood shop.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's other stuff going on back there. And so, but I see a lot of school districts doing this now. Instead of each individual campus having industrial skills or medical education, they have these centers that the entire district can share resources about.
Exactly.
And so having been educated in this system and then like now being a leader in this system, like what do you see as an advantage for kids with that approach? And I know it's been taking a minute for the district to get it up and running, but what do you see as the advantages compared to how we were coming up?
The biggest advantage is that real world training, real world association. Students, since the beginning almost have asked the question, why do I need to know this? How is this going to help me moving forward? And so it helps with that piece tremendously because you are able to take that math skill, that English skill, that science skill, and apply it in a real way where you can see the translation. Particularly in the health when you start talking about science, getting into biology and physical science and things like that. One of the best things that happened for us is when year before last, our engineering challenge, which was civil. And we had a civil engineer that came in and worked with the class. And she was taking them through some trigonometry and the problems and showing them how it related directly to the bridges that they were trying to build. And that was a perfect opportunity to show how these things that you need to learn in the core classroom. Because I'm with you. I agree with teach them what they want, but you also have to teach them what they need.
Yeah.
Now, if you can find a way to teach them what they need that is more relatable to them, then you're able to do both. And one of the things that I thought about when you said that is when I was in the classroom and it came to teaching fractions and specifically the translation between fraction, decimal, and percent. We started off in my class because I was not a traditional educator. So a lot of it I didn't do traditional. I got a hoop, put it on the back of my door, had them doing free throws.
Yeah.
They had to convert free throws, decimal, and percent. And as I grew in my educational experience, we went from the hoop on the back of my door to we would actually get time in the gym to do this math project. But they got to shoot basketball, which was something that they enjoyed. So I think it's things like that, but it has to be a balance because you have to give them what they need and have to make sure they have the foundational things. Because if you don't, then some of the things that they do with technology, they either won't understand why they're doing it or have a good depth of how to do it if they miss those foundational things. So we've been having a conversation about next year taking the Chromebooks out of their hands to a certain extent. They'll still have access to them, but let's get some pen, let's get some paper, let's get some pencil. Let's write this stuff and make sure that you are better able to internalize it so that when you do get that Chromebook or that laptop, you have a deeper understanding of what you're doing and can kind of go from there. So I think it has to be some of both, and that's what we try to do here.
Okay. Now let me switch gears slightly. We've still spoken on the kids, but I want to kind of talk about challenges, just like citywide that's going on, and like how it impacts the culture here, and like what things y'all are doing to kind of manage it. And we talked earlier again about how oftentimes kids bring to school what's going on in the home, and if we're on that line wavelength, oftentimes they bring what's going on in the neighborhood into the school. Um, and so, and I know, like, so I ran a middle school, and there's certain practices and things that you're going to do with middle school kids that don't work with high school.
Right.
And I haven't told you this, but I'll be transparent with you. I was nervous about coming here because most of the stuff that I've done BRSTEM has largely been 3rd grade to 8th grade.
Right. I remember you mentioning that.
And when so right when the school closed, I was still working with some of the kids from Apex, but I told a couple people, so don't get me called by the people, but you could kind of tower over the little babies or whatever. Right. You can get them that look.
Right.
But once the frog get in that throat, they be like, Mr. Lewis, nah, bruh.
Or they're able to look down at you. Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, I'm like, I'm not even for the rest with nobody. That's my size. I'm not going to do all that. Right. So that was kind of the thing. And so I had to learn it myself. And I've shared this with a couple people between coming here and coming to Cabo. I had to learn it myself how to, kind of build that rapport, kind of that back and forth with kids that don't want to be engaged or whatnot. Because it's just I had to figure out what a different set of tools are. So that was just me individually. And so I guess as a school leader, because again, on a high school campus, you got a whole level of different things going on. And so how do you try to manage, they call it behavior in middle school, but just how do you try to manage the culture around here to keep students engaged, to keep them safe, and to keep them excited about their future?
It is an ongoing battle. It is constant and continuous. Couple of things that worked in my favor was that I had previously taught in this area.
Okay.
And I was from this area. So from the time I got here as an assistant principal, even till now, I would run into family members of students that I had taught or people who I grew up with, kids were here and things like that. So that was a piece that helped. And then, as I said earlier, I've been blessed to have the ability to connect with the kids on different levels, to be able to be approachable to them, but still maintain their respect. And so that has kind of always worked in my favor. The other part was coaching. Athletic coaching gives you certain advantages because you're a coach. If they hear the name coach, a certain level of buy-in comes with that. So those things help, but even with that, it was still a lot of work that we have to do, because these students have gone through some of the most traumatic times imaginable. And we even did a study a couple of years ago. It was a class we had graduating, and we was like, that group of kids, when they were younger, they went through Katrina.
Yeah. Yep.
As they came up, they went through the Great Flood and then subsequently COVID. So you've had this series from, the time that you were young, to adversely impact you. In addition to all the things that we know that they come to school with, the challenges of emotional, socioeconomic status, one parent households, whether it's mom or dad, and just those conflicts that come particularly when you are in a low income area. And so for us, it is balancing that, keeping everybody safe, because that's first. Like, even before educating them, our number one job is to keep them safe. We've had some experiences with that being a struggle in terms of guns and stuff as they become more prominent, and you have to address those things. And then there is getting to the root cause of it. And that's really where we try and make sure that we focus in on, like, the child's exhibiting this behavior, but what is happening or has happened that's causing the child to exhibit its behavior, and then have some real conversations. One of the things that I think EBR has gotten significantly better about is that we now have a full-time social worker on staff.
Okay.
Um, and fortunately for us, because we have a health clinic on campus, we have a second social worker on the campus. Um, Counselors are really trying to get back to incorporating as much as they can that real counseling piece. And even with all of that, sometimes you can't stop it. We even had some students to tell us at the time, just being really candid, had a fight on campus. We going through the process, investigating, getting statements. And the thing was, why are y'all fighting at school? And the response we got is, well, we fight here because we know that it's less likely that somebody gonna be able to pull out a gun. So we can just fight without worrying about somebody getting killed. In a roundabout way, that's kind of a compliment, but at the same time, it highlights what these kids are dealing with on a regular basis. Like, I can't resolve this conflict outside of school because I might get killed. So at least if I come to school, I know I have my fair shot.
So you threw me for a loop on that one.
No.
Wow.
No, they said, and I know it to be the truth. My first year as principal here, we had 7 kids get shot. None of it happened on campus.
Yeah.
But it was all kids that we knew. There were some very prominent situations that happened in the city that were related to kids that went to Scotlandville. And we even last school year had a situation where some young people made a really bad decision to attempt to get on campus with guns. And now they're customizing them, so they adding switches. And so didn't happen. We were able to stop them, but you just have to stay vigilant.
Man, I remember the school was open for 3 years over in Mount Pilgrim.
I remember.
And fortunately, we never had like incidents. I mean, I think the entire 3 years, there might have been 2 fights.
Right.
But one of the things that happened, and this is why I talk about like the community, most of the kids from same population of kids, same demographic. And they would get off the bus, they would line up, they would come in the building. And I would shake every child's hand. So one day the whole school lined up out. So it had to be the last year because I think it was all 3 grades. The kids were lined up, and all of a sudden I just hear pow, pow, pow. And I think one bus was still unloaded, and I was like, put the kids back on the bus, and I just like ran everybody inside. And what happened was the apartment complex right behind the church. It was some high school kids. They taken some lady car. And she got in her neighbor's car and got behind them and chased them. And the side street on the side of the church, that's where you can come out. You can come out either side of that apartment complex. You can go by Hall Davis or behind the church. And they had came around and chased them they must have came out on the Hall Davis side, chased them into the parking lot. And the kids and started shooting at them. And the kids just jumped out the car. And I don't know if they still do, but they used to have like these trailers for the church. They were labels and everything, and paint on. And one of the kids just dove into the trailer. And the other 2 kids just took off running, but they just started shooting right down the parking lot. And so, and obviously like middle school kids, they're going to talk about this. Right. Go back home, they're going to tell their parents. But again, especially if it's a kid growing up and like they haven't experienced this, like that's a traumatic situation. And so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's tough. And again, as far as a school leader, I applaud you because I've had a situation where, just like you described, I had to explain to a kid that I can't have that happening at this school, so you got to leave,
right?
Because they were on social media talking crazy, and I was like, dude, like what am I going to do and this was before that incident, because this was the year before that incident happened. And this wasn't even involving students at the school.
Right.
I said, so y'all on social media acting out, talking that tough talk, train yourself, I mean, like posing with guns and stuff. And them kids know where you go to school. So what I'm supposed to do when they show up at this school looking for you, and then you hear you telling me that this happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whew.
That's what you have
Yeah.
to do. And we actually ended up having to transfer the student
Yeah.
that the guys were looking for to the virtual academy, just to keep everybody safe. So that you have to deal with it. And a bigger part of the challenge now is that, it used to be that the parents were not supported. Now you find a lot of times they will fully indulge in it. And so, that makes it tougher on schools, particularly when the parent is saying, if this happens, then you better respond like this.
And so I get that part, but do you think that there's a pathway? And I say this because again, when I, we had like all these different structures and stuff, and I'm sure you heard a teacher like a champion. But one of the mentors in the program that I was in was a white lady, and she said that she learned one of the things that she learned over time was that you can't tell kids that grew up in certain environments. Like she learned to stop using the word inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are certain things that they may do at the house that nobody in the family finds anything wrong with.
Right.
But if you come to school, and this is kind of the whole teach like a champion, that strong structure piece, that if we're calling it inappropriate, now the kids got to go back home and they might get a different reaction, or they tell their mom or their grandmother that what they're doing is inappropriate.
Right.
And so I guess my question is, in trying to strike that balance, and it'd be whether like you being disrespectful to adult, the language that you're using, because again, I've asked kids like, could you imagine Mr. Jackson sitting in a staff meeting and using some of this language with his peers?
Right.
Or you get a job, at Exxon or wherever, and sitting in a staff meeting, and just like every other word out your mouth. And so I guess what I'm trying to understand is, you feel like there's a pathway, um, to, as the kids say, be respectful of who they are, but also help them to be able to move in a school setting and in a community setting where we don't have all this animosity going.
It's a challenge, but I definitely think there is a path. So most of them know, for the most part, that, using profanity in certain environments is not appropriate. But you do have to strike that balance. And I use marijuana. I use weed.
Okay.
Weed used to be in the school system. It was automatic 2-year expulsion.
Okay.
They've had to change that. Part of the reason why they've had to change it is, you don't necessarily want a child to come to school under the influence. But if they're getting out of the car with their parent and a big cloud coming out, are you going to send the child back home? Or are you going to take them, let them air out, and go ahead to class? So it's finding that balance. By the same token, them speaking, students today are really, really big on respect.
Yeah.
And that respect has to be mutual. But more often than not, if you do give it to them, even when they flash out or start cussing, if you can just keep your calm and be like, hey, is this the way? And they'll be like, no, but so-and-so and such and such. Or I know I shouldn't, but so-and-so. And you get to having that conversation, you can bring it back around, because a lot of them, good, bad, or indifferent, them and their parents, a conversation includes cussing each other out.
That's what I've learned. That's what I've learned.
That's part of the way they speak. So to tell them, oh no, you can't cuss in my class, may not always be realistic, but there has to be that line of respect there. And it's a process, and it's something that we have to continue to have conversation about as a school holistically, so that the teachers can understand, especially if you have, and I guess I'm at that point now, considered old school, where you simply did not do that. That was not tolerated. Um, that may not necessarily be realistic in a class today. So you have to figure out what are those boundaries, what are those non-negotiables, and how do I correct or redirect them without them feeling like you playing on their top? Are you disrespecting them? Are you trying to shine on them?
Yeah.
And have those conversations to be able to keep it respectful. And it's a moving target, is what it is. It is definitely a moving target.
All right, so let's I guess we could talk a little bit about the partnership between I'm sorry, let me correct myself. We could talk about the partnership between the Scotlandville Magnet High School.
Very good, very good.
And BRSTEM. And so was excited to have the opportunity to work with the engineering program. Currently, we're working with 9th and 10th graders, and then we've recently with robotics have started working with 11th graders as well. I guess let's talk a little bit about like what your vision is for the overall engineering program.
So my vision is just that we oftentimes use the moniker or the hashtag, we did it first, we do it best. And so we want to make sure that we are doing everything that remains true. So for us is that, as teachers come and go, programs shift, demands in education change, that we are still providing our students with the best experience possible. One of the great things that I experienced while working here is that, again, it was for a different symposium, and it was somebody from industry that was coming to work with the kids. And what he said was, the exact same things that they're learning is what I do on my job every day. And so that let us know, well, we are definitely on the right track. We are definitely doing our part to prepare our students. But you don't want to become stagnant.
Yeah.
You don't want to become complacent. And you don't want to give them a less than experience, because if we have industry people saying, well, yeah, these students are at Scotlandville, they're working on the thing, they're learning how to do what we do now, we wanted to stay positive. And so we felt like we had some great teachers, but they were new to education, even though have engineering backgrounds. Yeah. And so we wanted to provide something that would supplement as well as support. We had the opportunity kind of to watch you from a distance as you were growing BRSTEM, even back to Apex, because I remember you bringing a group of your kids here for 8th grade day. And so I knew that the knowledge base was there, the engagement piece was there. And, I definitely believe that the definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing and expect different results. And so while we felt like the engineering program was still in a good place, we knew there was opportunity to push it forward. And so when we realized like this is something that we need to pursue in terms of the partnership, it was pretty much a no-brainer.
Okay. And so I just kind of share some of the things we've been doing thus far. I think, so when we talk, my idea was to really prep the 9th and 10th graders as a part of like our own facilitator program.
Right.
Because I think leadership is also important. I mean, I'm big on leadership. And so our goal was to train them on, all the activities that we currently do. And we're always developing new things, but to train them on all the activities that we currently do so that they can then facilitate sessions for the younger kids and just kind of create this pipeline here in the Scotlandville community. So that just kind of fit into what theoretically we want to see happen in the communities that we serve. And so we've done coding, we've done AI, we've done robotics, aside from the robotics team that's being launched, but we've done robotics. We work with the kids on agriculture. So we actually have, I told Miss Ruffin, but we have 6 baby chicks that are going to be moving on campus from my house hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah, because the kids have been asking about
Yeah,
the chickens.
they've been on me
They
about
want to
that.
know.
So, but they're coming back outside. We were able to get some last week. They're at the house. There's 6 of them that have made it so far, and so want to make sure that they get strong. But then hopefully in the next week or so they'll be in Miss Ruffin's classroom,
That's
and then
awesome.
the kids can then raise them. And then at the same time, we're going to restart the garden that we had started back in the fall, and so just trying to make sure we cover the gamut of
Right.
experiences and fields of expertise in the STEM fields. And so I think what's great about that is I know our university is trying to work on something for the community as well. And so what I want to be able to do is make that connection. And so I think it's called like peer mentors. So they'll be able to facilitate for the young kids and then connecting them with the college students and our student interns. If we can move forward with this planned STEM festival that's planned for the university, want to be able to bring some of the Scotlandville students to that to actually man the stations, but then also be mentored by college students. So that's the initial piece, which I think is going really well. So again, we're working with the 9th and 10th grade students. And we got into Python, which they had not been doing, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then we did AI like in the latter part of the first semester. So that was pretty cool. Now, this next phase, we have some more activities to do with the 9th and 10th graders, but what I'm also really excited about is this robotics team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't remember the exact number. It might have been close to 20 kids between Miss Hollins and Miss Ruffin and Coach. We took about 20 kids, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders to Dennis Springs High.
Yeah.
And they had the opportunity to kind of be mentored by those kids and their coaches. And so probably about a half-day session. And this is kind of where the CTE stuff comes in at. I think it was cool because like in their situation in Livingston Parish, they don't have the equivalent of a CTE, but Dennis Springs High, I don't know about the other high schools, but Dennis Springs had, different machinery in the lab.
On campus, yeah.
And so they were able to cut aluminum for the kids. They had CAD drawings that they were able to run through machines and build a board for them. So the kids that were going to CTE, I think it was cool for them to actually see a product being sliced up in front of them, that they could actually tangibly use. And so they helped us to manufacture everything. We put everything it was basically like 4 modules that we put together. And then since that visit, we've been here on campus, assembling it. And so hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have their robot put together. And there's a group of kids on the team that are doing coding. And so hopefully we can spend the month of March coding the robot, maybe take another trip back over to Dennis Springs because they had the whole arena laid out over there. But make another trip back to Dennis Springs to kind of test it, go through the obstacle course or go through the game. And then Miss Hollins and Miss Ruffin are taking a group of students to New Orleans. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah.
For the competition.
Absolutely.
But I think we were working yesterday. And I think what was a beautiful thing, because Coach came in, his son Jason's on the team.
Right.
And he came in last week and helped him a little bit. And so even though we don't necessarily have machinery, like the kids were sewing, so it was good for the kids that go to CTE to have a chance to practice something here at school that they're learning. So I think that was a great engagement opportunity. But the other thing was yesterday, like I said, we're almost there, but I shared with Jace how, like, think about it, dude, like, look how far we've come.
Yeah.
Like we almost had this robot together. What I think there was a couple things I think, and I don't know if the teacher shared it with you, that I think a lesson we could take back even as adults. And I don't say this to be throwing no shade at nobody, but I think it's an aspirational opportunity. Imagine, since we've had some school consolidations and stuff, and Miss Ruffin has been trying to help the kids understand this. We had a heart to heart with the kids one day.
Right.
That there's an opportunity here that not a lot of kids get, whether kids in your neighborhood or kids across the city.
Yeah.
And, there's some great schools in our school district. But there's some stuff going on in Scotlandville that's not going on anywhere else.
Absolutely.
And what if we could take what was going on in Scotlandville and make it for the broader Scotlandville community, including Southern, and this kind of served as the hub, the engineering hub in our community. And so we went to Denham Springs. Like basically what ended up happening, it was an elementary school that they ended up closing following the Great Flood and just turned it over to the high school. They gave it to the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And the gym is like an entire robotics lab.
Right.
And so there was a vacant school in this community.
And there he is.
That could be an engineering laboratory, like a regional engineering laboratory for the entire school district, an athletic complex for the entire school district that's currently sitting vacant right now. I just think, because I just think there's so many resources in Scotlandville that kind of add to that legacy and that rich history. And so I just think there's an opportunity from what we are doing or what you guys are doing here at Scotlandville High to spread to maybe Ryan Elementary campus or J.K. Haynes on campus or something like that.
Yeah.
That not only could help students at Scotlandville or students within the school district, but actually could be a community resource / job training type of opportunity for the community. And so
Definitely.
that we talked about that when we were at the school, because like when you walk in there, and they were like just awestruck because it was an entire robotics arena set up, just like it's going to be at the competition, and it's like all these stations and tools, and they got all the tools, and they got a machine shop in one end of the thing. And I'll just say, and this is coming from Eric Lewis, it's not coming from Mr. Jackson. I just believe our kids deserve that.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe our kids deserve that. You know, young man I grew up with, next door neighbor. This was some years ago, but he ended up eventually moving to Houston, and I think I had just moved back from Dallas. I'm sorry, and he was saying that his sons were going to a school. I don't know if it was sponsored or whatever by NASA or something like that. And this was like several years ago. I mean, I'm sure his kids are the same age as mine, and all of mine are out of high school now. But he just was like so excited about like all the resources they had.
Mm-hmm.
And I just believe every child, regardless of their zip code, in East Baton Rouge Parish deserve that same access and that same opportunity.
Well, I'm going to make sure that the superintendent gets a copy of this. But what I will say is what you just described is so in line with the vision that he shared for us. So one of the things is that when we talk about the Scotlandville community, from the district standpoint, we're talking about Innovation Zone 1, which focuses on STEAM. So
and it's kind of similar to how Capital is the medical corridor, the medical school. Yeah, so all the schools that feed into them have medical programs. Like I went to Capital Elementary, and there's a big old doctor over there. Even though Park Elementary was the medical school, like they're doing the same stuff at Capital Elementary. So go ahead. Yeah.
So it's that same concept here for us with SPEMA, the middle school, as well as with Progress and Crestworth, so that they come up with that and have the opportunity to get exposed to it. One of the other beautiful things, and you touched on it, with partnering with BRSTEM with you, is that you do make sure they touch all of the various disciplines in engineering, which was something that was really important to us. And they have been able to see it differently, which makes them think differently. And I have to tell you this quick story. So our team, two things. One, shout out to Coach Noah, because we were able to bring him back to his computer science, because he's a computer science grad. And so I was really excited to hear that they pulled him in. But that team was so excited that they had the opportunity to speak in front of our advisory board.
Okay.
And at the time, we didn't know what they were going to say. So they came with a proposal for like $50,000 for equipment and things that they needed, because they were so excited about the opportunity to expand and bring something similar to what they saw at Denham Springs to the Scotlandville community, to Scotlandville Magnet High School. And so, the number kind of took everybody back a little bit because we weren't expecting that. But you could not miss the passion.
Yeah.
You could not miss the excitement and the really positive energy that the teachers had. So it's like, if the teachers feel this way about it, imagine how the students feel. And so that does lead me into we have some really, really big goals for the Scotlandville community. We definitely want to be the hub of it, but we have some really big goals about things that we want to do in terms of, since the superintendent has coined it, Innovation Zone 1. We want to maximize and leverage out that innovation part so that we stay on the cutting edge and stay growing. So as you were talking about that vision of a space in this community, that's some of the same conversations
Okay.
that we had to have as a result of what they saw, because it was just too big to miss out on.
Yeah, and I mean, I would encourage, because I think I had suggested him. So even, whenever we get to take the kids back, because I think we're supposed to go at the end of February, but they had some conflicts.
Yeah.
But if we could get, some more adults to go see it, it's like you got to be able to see it. And so, like, we've shown the kids the videos of the robotics competitions and these arenas packed with all these kids from all over the world and stuff. Um, and sometimes, you just can't really connect that, but then they saw it for themselves,
Live and in
the
person.
physical setup,
Yeah.
which was really, really cool. So yeah, now just before we close, because I'm sure somebody gonna say something, we didn't talk about the awesome athletic program. I had a chance, and I have been trying to get around to it, but I didn't get a chance to. So I didn't make a football game, and I don't. Well, the kids said it. Yeah, they just it wasn't the best. It wasn't representative of Scotlandville this year, so we're gonna do better.
Right.
But I did finally get a chance to go to the girls' basketball game, and so I don't want to discount that fact that even as look at all these trophies across the back of this library, Scotlandville has always had an amazing athletics program.
Yes.
And so I was talking to Coach Sample, who our kids, grew up together and played sports together. But I was talking to Coach Sample, Coach Duncan at Glen Oaks used to be over here.
Yeah.
Mr. Randall over at Glen Oaks used to be over here.
Yeah.
And so, just before we close, I just want to help people understand, like, why, how, and it's now track season and baseball and softball season. Like, how has Scotlandville have been able to maintain a level of excellence, both academically and athletic?
So we have been,
and let me, I'm gonna give you an example of what I'm talking about. So we talked earlier about this transition from the dedicated magnet to a neighborhood school. Like, basically, y'all build a football program like that.
Yeah.
And it took off. Like, it really took off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But go ahead.
So even when that happened, and I'll start from a different angle.
Okay.
I ran into Coach Washington.
Okay.
And he was the first Scotlandville Magnet High School football coach.
Okay.
We were talking at the LHSA convention, and I was sharing with him that even back then, new school, new to football, getting it back. And I went to a game. They were playing Redemptress. And at that time, Redemptress was a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And Redemptress won. But even in that, I remember thinking, just being in the stands, I'm like, yeah, whoever going to get Scotlandville, they better get them now. Because, later on, you won't be able to get them. And one of the things
was it Barry the coach of Redemptress at that time?
I think so.
He was still there?
I think so. I think that was Sid, because I remember they had this phenomenal running back. And all I heard, I remember going home in my sleep hearing Jay Lucas on the carry. Jay Lucas on the carry. But even then, you couldn't deny the speed. You couldn't deny the passion. They were just new.
Yeah.
And like I said, Redemption was the powerhouse. But Scotlandville has been able to, first you got the living legend, Coach Sample, who came from Estruma and took Scotlandville to 14 straight
That's wild.
championship games. 14. So for 14 consecutive years, we either won the state title.
So what would you say to the haters that say, nah, that's because y'all was in that select division?
So initially, when he first started his run, we weren't.
Okay.
And even if you talk about it being select, it was still 5A select. And 5A select is a little different, just because it's the biggest classification. So it is that piece. And even if you look at those championship teams through their regular seasons, you didn't play just select. You played everybody.
Yeah.
And there was even a couple of years in
Because you're still in the district with the public school.
Exactly. And there were a couple of years in there where he played a national schedule.
Gotcha.
Because that's where they were. My first year here, the football team made it to the state championship game. They went to the Dome. Quarterback was Levi Lewis. Coach Levanta Davis, phenomenal team.
Levi went to UL?
He did.
Okay.
He did. And so even when football and basketball kind of hit a little swoon, as it does, because it's cyclical, track teams were sweeping indoor and outdoor. So even now, as they are kind of rebuilding, here comes our girls basketball team, which made it to the quarters this year. And the thing that has everyone so excited is the team is made up strictly of freshmen and sophomores. So quarters this year, after some growth and some training, and we expect them to be back.
And then y'all got a young coach who just that's because she's the same coach that was in Opelousas last year, right?
Correct. Well, a couple of years ago. So she does great with connecting with them. They definitely maximize their digital platform. But Scotlandville, just because the area, part of it is passion and pride. Part of it is, there are certain pockets and communities that just tend to produce some phenomenal athletes. Now, one of the things that we've benefited from is the magnet program is able to get students from all over the city. And so to a certain degree, that does help. But one of the things that we've noticed as we are moving back in a positive direction with athletics is a lot of the kids are coming from the Scotlandville community.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because I didn't play him in football, but my son played on the baseball team in Scotlandville. And so there's an excellent youth sports program in Scotlandville.
Absolutely. And we are excited about it again. We are hopeful that shortly we'll see some things done in terms of upgrades for facilities. But our programs have always been able to excel, and we see it continuing. And what's really exciting now is holistic, from football and volleyball all the way to bowling. We probably have the strongest coaching staff across the board that we've had. Probably have, I know for me, definitely the best administrative team that supports, athletics as well as academics. And so we'll be moving to a new district this year. We're moving down to 4A.
Okay.
And we're even excited about that because our numbers are not as big as when I first got here, just with all the landscape changes that have happened in education. But is an opportunity for us to compete against schools that are similar size. And, we expect that to be a couple of years and then plan to be moving back up, but still being successful along the way.
So if we take these last couple conversations, and it just hit me. If we take these last couple conversations about, what area?
Innovation Zone 1.
Okay. So we kind of take that from an academic standpoint, and then now we're talking about the sports, and you got the youth programs here in the Scotlandville community. Yeah. In a sense, you kind of have the same structure that a Central Zachary would have, where you got your feeder schools, you got your youth programs, you got a high school that is trying to pull kids along the way in the same specialty. And so it feels like a formula for success. Whereas in some of our other traditional schools, again, like you said, kids can go all over the city, and I know some of those principals is having those challenges, kind of keeping kids in their community.
Right.
But it seems like there's a really, really good formula for success in Scotlandville.
There is, and I think that is a couple of reasons. Everything that we just mentioned, but we have students as we hosted for 8th grade day, and they were like, well, My mama went to Scotlandville. My grandmother went to Scotlandville. My great grandmother may have gone to Scotlandville. So we want to come as well. So it's that rich tradition,
Yeah.
but it's also we are trying to, as diverse as our programming is as diverse as we're trying to make our resources. So you will probably be familiar when I say this. Jeffrey Canada,
Yeah.
who did the Harlem Children's Zone, and it's just he systematically took the challenges that the students in particular area, started with a block in Harlem and started addressing those and continued to track their academic progress. And as you will stand to reason, as those barriers were removed, the better they did. So our goal at Scotlandville is to increase the level of which we are a hub of the community so that we are meeting some of the needs for our students with things that occur to them outside the campus, but have a direct impact on them in the campus. And we believe that if we are able to do that, then we should see them sustain success.
All right. So look, I appreciate you joining. I appreciate the opportunity. I feel like I was going to wear a Scotlandville shirt, but then Mr.
Well, you
Randall
had a little black and gold in there.
Yeah, but Mr. Randall might have got mad if I'd have.
Probably. Probably.
So look, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to work with the students at Scotlandville High, and looking forward to much success the remainder of this year and throughout the years ahead. So, Mr. Jackson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Eric. We appreciate everything you are doing with our kids and around the community as a whole.
All right. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the BRSTEM podcast. We will talk to you later.
You have been listening to the BRSTEM podcast, Our Children Need Roots and Wings. Be sure to check out previous episodes on YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, and Amazon Music. Keep soaring.